Welcome back, dear listeners, to the Fright or Flight podcast, where we rank, recap, and review every horror movie in a given franchise.
That's right. We're continuing our season on Stephen King. We're so excited. We're doing Carrie, our last episode of the season.
Season.
However, the first one in Stephen King's published works.
Yes, it is, actually. I'm Jumpscare Jer, and/or Geraldine, if you've been watching the Fright of the podcast.
And I'm Frankie, the Flight of the podcast.
Welcome to Carrie.
Yeah, really excited. You know, this one was published forever ago, like over 20 years before we were born. And I didn't know a lot about Stephen King at all until we did this podcast. I just found out that Stephen King and his wife were really broke before he wrote this novel. And that when he wrote the novel, he threw it away. Like, he wrote a couple of pages, threw it in the garbage, and then his wife found it and said, hey, you got to keep doing this.
He put his manuscript away, and then he started working on Salem's Lot. And he really didn't think it was worthy of anything. And he said that, well, there was a lot of hype with the horror community. And he was like, I guess I should just try. And, of course, it became a success.
Yeah.
And it was his first book. And then when they approached him to buy the rights to the movie, they gave him $2,500, which is not a lot of money now, but back then, I'm sure that was a lot of money.
Yeah, and I mean, thank God. I mean, this book is, and really is what jump-started all of it.
Yeah,
and now we have this movie that we just watched.
However, I will note, every single time that we get into the books to the movies, they always say that the books are far more gruesome or vicious or violent than what we get to see on the screen.
That's right.
So that's always kind of a downside to me, because sometimes I kind of want to see all of the details.
Yeah.
So I guess that is one of the downsides to having like written works adapted.
I actually think it's a plus side because you get to have the two different versions. So if you want all the blood, guts, and gore, you can read the book.
That's true. And it has prompted me and like ignited this like interest in me to want to actually read them.
Well, this is the first one that we're covering in our season that I've read the entirety of.
You've read the entirety of the book.
Yeah, it's a short one. It's one of the shorter ones, especially compared to the It that we just did, that is like over 1,000 pages. Yeah, Carrie's like 200 to 300 pages.
Didn't you just start it today?
Yeah, it's
wow.
you can do. It's definitely a 1 to 2 day read.
So this is the only book in the Stephen King like universe that you have finished in its entirety.
Yes, the other ones I've started almost every one of them, and honestly, it's really put me on a journey of enjoying Stephen King and the way he writes his prose. And Carrie did not disappoint. The novel did, at least for me. And I think it's just so fun to me personally comparing the original work versus the film adaptations. Okay,
well then when we get to that point, I will have you take over the book versus the movie.
For sure, yeah.
Because all I did was look up the things, and I don't know how true they are.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be honest, because I haven't read it. So I will rely on your knowledge there. But yeah, this is such a cool book. I think Stephen King also noted that he said that he didn't know what would have happened to his marriage or his career had he not actually put this book out.
Yeah, and I'm so happy he did.
I'm so happy he did.
Like, could you imagine, like, everything we know, everything he's inspired? You know, there's a huge industry just based around Stephen King. So I'm very thankful that this novel did come out and that his wife had such a big part of it, honestly. Like, if it wasn't for his wife, we wouldn't have all we know today.
You know, typically I feel like you hear about like the spouse being like a nagger. Specifically, that's how people portray like women as wives, and I think that's really annoying. But I feel like,
do you relate to that?
Sometimes, but I feel like we do it for good reason.
Yeah, you know, I've definitely been pushed towards the right way because of my spouse.
And you're not just saying that because she's sitting.
And I'm very thankful. I'm very grateful. But that's how it should be. It should be a team, right?
Yeah, I mean, they should be your biggest supporter, your biggest fan kind of thing. And if they're not, you're doing it wrong.
I agree, yeah.
So I love it. And we're grateful for Mrs. King for that. I don't know what her name is, actually. So I think I saw that it was Tabitha.
We're fake fans.
We are fake fans.
Yeah,
sorry.
Fans.
R.I.P. Not R.I.P., but because she's alive.
My bad.
My bad. I don't know how to talk.
Sorry, Mrs. King.
Yeah, sorry, Mrs. King. I almost said R.I.P. again. I don't know why. So this movie was released in 1976. It was directed by Brian De Palma. I've never seen a single piece of his works, at least to my knowledge, other than this film. But apparently this movie was his most successful directorial debut.
Now,
but he's made other films.
That's interesting. I do like a lot of his direction. I like a lot of the things they did with the movie, having read the book and seeing the adaptation. I think they did a phenomenal job. And a lot of the things, besides the minor details that you mentioned earlier about like the blood, guts, and gore, are just like one-to-one. And even the things that aren't, like the actual production side of things, of demonstrating, for example, the prom at the end and how he like did a split screen.
That was amazing.
Loved it. It was spectacular. And that's obviously not something that could be represented in the book. So I really liked seeing that in the movie.
Well, yeah, to see the prom situation happening from multiple avenues.
Because there's a lot going on.
There's so much going on.
So to be able to split it like that.
In 1976, this is fucking iconic.
It is, yeah. And, you know, the novel being written in 74, only 2 years apart. And I am very grateful.
Very grateful, because this was like I don't want to say it's the true start of horror as we know it, but like, you know, because horror has been around for many, many years, but it's just truly making its mark notably in like, because it's, I don't know, 1960s when Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho came out, and that was a stir. And then like things like, you know, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and like The Exorcist came out in early 70s as well. Like 74 was The Exorcist. So then now we have 1976 Carrie.
Well, I want to ask you about that and your experience. Just for me, I feel like I've heard Carrie a little bit here and there. To me, it's always sounded like kind of like a cult classic kind of deal.
Yeah.
And I think it's very notable. And but I haven't ever really known anything about what it's about. And it wasn't until like this past week that I started seeing some imagery about it. I learned it's about telekinesis. I didn't know that before. And I just want to know, in the like American culture zeitgeist, you know, you're somebody who grew up with all this horror elements around you. How significant was Carrie in like your upbringing? Was it something that was mentioned often? Was it something that was just more on the shelf and, you know, you guys didn't talk about it much besides here and there?
So I had actually never personally watched this version until the other day. I had seen the 2013 version that they came out with, starring Chloe Grace Moretz. It's a great movie. I liked it. But having seen the original, I think the original is so much better comparatively because of the time, and it just feels like it fits. I don't know. I just feel like it just fits that imagery. The only thing that you get with the newer versions is like the more notable technology that we have. But in my experience, you know, the iconic line from the mother, "They're all gonna laugh at you. They're all gonna laugh at you." I've heard that my whole life growing up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my parents have always quoted that part.
I wish we queued up that sound clip.
He's gonna laugh at you. They're all gonna laugh at you.
But we have such an iconic cast, and let's just dive into it because it's just so good. We have Sissy Spacek as Carrie White. First of all, they're all old as hell in this movie, and I really think that they did not look that old. Sissy Spacek was 25 years old.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm happy 17. Considering the situations that they're in.
Me
in the film, that they're older. But I am very impressed by the cast, especially by Sissy Spacek. I think they did a phenomenal job. I was concerned throughout a lot of the movie that her as Carrie was kind of dealt without a lot of personality. Especially by the halfway mark, I'm like, I feel like this character doesn't have a lot going for them as far as like what kind of person they are, how they go by the world. I feel like they're just walking and things are happening to them.
I'm assuming that changed throughout the course.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, by the end of the movie, I've grown an appreciation for her and her personality. And I do like Carrie.
Oh, God, who doesn't? Yeah. If you don't have like some sort of sympathy for this character, I feel like you're more of like the Chris or like the Billies of like your area. Like you were kind of like the bully vibe.
I mean, it's almost kind of like a Cinderella thing. Where she's just at home, lives an awful life, is abused. And then when she goes anywhere else, it's the same kind of deal.
It's so sad, but I think they did such a phenomenal job. And Piper Laurie was actually going to retire, and then they sent her the script, and she thought throughout the entirety of the film that it was just a dark comedy. Like it was just supposed to be a dark comedy. So, because she thought the way that it was written, it was like, there's no way that this is meant to be like a serious movie. This is supposed to be like a dark comedy because of the overt dramatic things.
That's so ironic given her performance.
It is. And what's funny is Brian De Palma had to pull her aside and was like, hey, no, this is a horror movie. It is not a dark comedy. But still to this day, I think she still swears up and down that it's a dark comedy. But I kind of can see that satire, like that, well, that sounded real Southern to me. That satire. But I can see the satire and the like comedic elements of her performance given where we're from.
I can see that for sure. Like kind of like an over exaggeration of people here in the Bible Belt. But I think her performance was so phenomenal. Like there was times where like she did like scare me.
Yeah.
And it added to the kind of pity that you feel for Carrie.
Yep.
And, you know, we'll talk about the differences later, but a couple of them between these two, Carrie and Margaret in the novel. Carrie isn't physically resembling at all Carrie in the novel.
That's what I read.
In the novel, she is bullied for being overweight and for having a lot of acne.
That's so stupid, because as a teenager, we all get fucking acne. That's kind of
But
dumb.
it does happen. I mean, like, that's why kids get bullied. You know, some of us have a lot more than others.
That's fair, I guess, but...
Yeah. And for Margaret White, her mother in the novel, she's just even more abusive, if you could imagine.
Yeah, that's what I was reading about, that she was far more abusive. But also I heard that, or read, not heard, as if someone told me this. I read that Margaret White, we also get more of her background, like family history, before she has Carrie, which is crazy that he has, like, you have the time to like delve into all of that before, like, you know, I don't know. It's kind of, I know that that's how books are, but in my mind, it's hard to imagine like that we're getting all of that, especially for like something as complicated or as humongous as it, you know, like you get all of these like backgrounds for all these characters. Yeah. It's like, how do you have the time, man?
Man, I got to tell you, Stephen King has a way with structuring his novels, and like it, you know, you mention it, it does flip through perspectives of like timelines.
Yeah. Like
between them as kids and them as adults. It doesn't go from like linearly from kids to adults. It flips back and forth. This novel does the same thing, in where like it talks about events from the future, like from their perspective on the past. So for example, in the novel, there's a lot of parts that are like actually, we're about to talk about Sue Snell, played by Amy Irving. Well, her character in the novel wrote a book about the events. And so there's excerpts.
I love that.
From the book. And there's also interviews from neighbors that were interviewed by reporters to tell the story of what happened with Carrie. And that's interweaved between the current perspective. So there's often mentioning of like, so many people died at prom night. Like,
I love that.
Before we even get to that scene. So by the time we actually get to prom night, we know something's going to go down because it's been referenced throughout the whole book.
But you know what? I'll save my thoughts for that when we get there. But yeah, so we have Piper Laurie, Sissy Spacek, Amy Irving as Sue Snell, John Travolta as Billy Nolan, William Catt as Tommy Ross, Nancy Allen as Chris Hargensen. I may have added an I there by accident.
I think you're right, Hargensen.
Yeah, it's Hargensen. I don't know why I added an I there. Must have been mistyped. Betty Buckley as Miss Collins, PJ Souls as Norma, and Priscilla Pointer as Mrs. Snell, and many, many others. There were so many like small parts that were into this, but that were not included. I'm not entirely sure why. I'm assuming probably for budget and time. This movie was shot over 50 days.
50 days?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just the prom scene alone took them 3 days to film.
I'm not surprised. I mean, there's a lot going on during that scene.
So much. So fun fact with that is that Mrs. Snell and Sue Snell are actually mother and daughter. So
really?
Priscilla Pointer is Amy Irving's actual mother. And of course, during the later scenes where we see her have an outburst, when we find out that she's the last person living and she's like traumatized from the events of what happened, in the scene where she has that outburst and she terrified her actual mother, and her mother, like Priscilla Pointer, like yelled Amy instead of yelling Sue.
Oh wow, that's a great scene, by the way. I mean,
it is a great scene.
She killed it, and maybe having that chemistry helped a little bit. You know, they knew each other.
What's funny is I've seen Amy Irving in a film before, and I didn't recognize it because it was when she was older. She was in another horror film called Hide and Seek with a young Dakota Fanning and Robert De Niro.
I really enjoyed her portrayal of Sue Snell in this movie. It was so sweet. It's obviously deeper in the book, but in the film still, by the end of the movie, I really sympathized with Sue. And I mean, in that little dream sequence that she had where she visited Carrie's house with some flowers, I thought it was very sweet.
Yeah, I read that sequence, like that ending that we get in the movie, was not actually in the book, and that was something that was a creative direction that they took.
There's quite a few of those. But I will say, in my opinion, most of them are negligible. The ending in general is probably the part that's the most different, as well as some characteristics between some of the people we get. Most notably, actually, John Travolta's Billy Nolan is quite different in the novel. And
Is he like worse or better?
way worse. In my opinion, John Travolta, this is the first movie I've seen featuring John Travolta.
Ever?
You've
in
never
his
seen
life?
Grease?
Never seen Grease.
Oh,
my
wow.
God.
Never seen Pulp Fiction.
What?
And so this is my first time seeing him. And
Oh my God.
my opinion is like he's playing John Travolta.
No, he's not.
I mean,
He looks like he does whenever I see any clip from Grease. He looks like he's playing that.
I mean,
he's playing
he's kind of typecast.
Yeah, he's kind of typecast. I mean, his character in Grease is a greaser, but he's not necessarily like a completely bad guy.
He just likes to act like he's like, oh no, I don't have feelings for this girl because that's weak.
I'm
and then
cool.
he's like, yeah, we were boning, and they were like, no, it was actually a romantic thing, and he was like, I love you, Sandy, and it's like he just thinks being in love is lame.
Does he have like an accent? Like how does he have a certain vernacular in the way he talks?
Kind of, I would say so, but it's not. I don't know what it is.
John Travolta-ism.
Yeah.
But in the book, he is a much darker character.
Oh.
Like he's as evil as the mother is in the novel. He takes joy when they go to kill the pig, for example.
I don't like that. I didn't like that scene either because I'm like, I know that that's what they do in those places, but I don't like to think about it because it breaks my heart.
It was very dark. I think one of the other characters named Lou, he talked about like that's the first time he ever saw Billy smile.
That's disgusting, and I hate that.
That's gross. You know, the first thing I thought of when I saw them walking up to the pig thing, I already knew what the climax of this movie was, despite never seeing it before. So I knew like, oh, they're going to go and kill a pig to get the blood. But I was like, it's so interesting that they're going to a slaughterhouse because they have turned into the pigs for the slaughter by doing this.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
That's like
Some
the symbolism.
irony.
Yeah, they're walking to their slaughter. So
I love it.
I will say, Geraldine, talking about another person, Nancy Allen portraying Chris Hargensen, I did think like, you know what? They kind of remind me of Geraldine.
Why?
The whole part where they're all working out because they're having to do some kind of punishment, and she's like, I'm not going to do it. And she stands up to the teacher. I don't know why that makes me think of you.
I would never do that.
Where like you would take a stand because you're like so fed up with something.
No. But also, what they did was absolutely wrong, and the teacher, even if how harsh her punishment was in their eyes or whatever, deserved.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what they did to that girl was awful.
Like, because, like, I mean, let's just go ahead and dive into that then. Because here we have, Carrie White, who is clearly a very sheltered, everyone kind of knows who her mother is in town, Margaret White. It's not really... I mean, I feel like they do a better job of showing it in the remake in 2013 with Chloe Grace Moretz. I'm assuming that's her job as seamstress. That's what she does, like locally, because that's what that's what they interpret or show in the 2013 movie, because I mean we see Margaret White with her sewing machine a lot of the time, and clearly Carrie knows how to sew as well, but I don't know because I've not read the book. I'm not sure what her occupation is. So I mean clearly Margaret White has a reputation in town anyway, and we see a scene with her going to Sue Snell's Mrs. Snell's house as well, and like she tries to like get people to like almost like convert, but not really. Yeah,
it's like a kind of a missionary scene. We've all had people come up to our doors.
Makes me laugh a little bit.
Have you guys met that kind of person?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I assume Geraldine would have, because both of us grew up so inherently as a part of the Bible Belt. But Frank, have you ever met anybody who's like that?
Not quite like this. I've definitely confronted a lot of missionaries. My experience are usually really nice. So not quite anybody who's as, I don't even know what the word is, but she is very disappointed in the public. Like I've never met anybody who's just out here calling everybody a sinner.
Oh, I have. Literally just visit any college campus. Yep. Honestly, they come and visit all the time.
I was just about to talk about that because at our college campus, there's always this one guy, and because freedom of speech, I'm sorry, I don't care. You're being hateful and you're trying to incite violence because of what, like he knows what he's doing, and he's a shit bag. I don't care.
Yeah, but what we're getting at is that Margaret would absolutely go to a college campus and call everybody, "You're sluts."
Yeah, you're a sinner. Cover up.
Yeah, the things that she was telling Carrie.
Yeah.
I mean, telling her like, oh, you're not going to get breasts until you're much older. Or the reason that you're bleeding is because you sinned.
That's wild, but I've met people like that, genuinely.
They really, like, for whatever reason, they really don't want women to, because they really, like, sexualize the reproductive health of a woman, which is, like, that's not all that it is. I mean, you have a period. It's just part of it. And, like, you're hindering Carrie because then she has her period in the gym. At the gym, like after gym class, after, you know, they all have a shower kind of thing. She's, you know, just having a good time showering, enjoying her shower. Then she starts fucking bleeding and she's like, oh my God. And I can recall the first time I got my period. Traumatizing.
Yeah, it is traumatizing. And I did have a question, Frank, since you read the book. Is that a big part of the book? Is Carrie getting her first period? And also, is she like a senior in high school when it happens?
It's as much a part of the book as it is in the film.
Perfect.
So it's like that in the beginning. Like seriously, a lot of the book is like 1-to-1. Like the whole shower scene, the principal office scene, the ashtray, her coming back home to her mother. It's like especially the beginning of the movie. It's very, very similar. I will say, and I wondered, but to you guys, like when me and Bailey first started to watch this movie, it was very much like, oh, I've never seen it, and there's a shower scene with a bunch of naked girls.
Yeah.
How did you take this? Do you feel like the girls were sexualized?
Yeah.
So that's how I felt personally, but I also, after watching some of the behind the scenes, a lot of the girls were nervous about it. But then they saw the dailies from Sissy Spacek's character, like Carrie, getting her shower, and they were like, "Oh, okay, I feel a little bit better about this." I guess because of the way that the camera was, it just felt natural. It didn't feel like it was such a big deal as well. So it did kind of feel a little bit normal. So not as sexualized as modern culture makes it, but because I mean they're just human bodies, you know, ultimately they're just human bodies, but I do feel a little bit of that sexualization there, but it's also paired with how we treat and talk about periods, because people are like, no, don't talk about it, but it's a fucking part of life. It's a normal part of life.
I heard somebody else talking about this scene in the film, and they talked about how like it was very unrelatable to them because they felt like in bathrooms they felt very comfortable with other women, and that like bathrooms are really safe spaces for women, and to feel like a sense of girlhood of like everybody helping each other out.
I'm glad.
Maybe if you're drunk at like a at like a club or something, but otherwise
no. that is not. I mean, I don't know, maybe if you're feeling confident in your body as a young person, yes, maybe, but even as an adult woman, I would feel uncomfortable at a local gym changing in front of other women.
I just mean just a general bathroom anywhere. I hear there's a lot of camaraderie, and like the whole thing of like how girls go to bathrooms in groups.
Maybe
and
like
if you're ever missing a tampon, somebody will give you a tampon.
Yes.
sometimes, yeah.
But generally it's something like going to, like, because I mean, I don't know about you, Bailey, but my experience in high school or middle school, going to the gym class when they make you fucking change, even though it's the worst experience ever.
Yeah, I hid in the showers for that. Our showers had curtains, but also it's very unrelatable to me because I feel like back in the day, I guess they had time to fucking shower during their gym class. You don't get time for that. You have like 3 minutes to change.
I wonder if like between the generations they had changed some of those like rules as well, because I'm sure there had to have been some like inappropriate business or even some, you know, hazing, because they do that, of course, bullying, stuff like that. So I mean, I can imagine. I just think the worst though. Yeah,
well, the only reason I bring it up is just because they were surprised. They didn't relate to the scene at all because they could never imagine a bunch of girls like ganging up on another girl because of a period.
They've just never been bullied before.
Yeah,
we've been bullied. Yeah, but the whole reason I asked the question about the period in the first place is just because it's interesting to me that Carrie is a senior in high school when she gets her first period. That is very, very, very
uncommon.
Late. Yeah, very uncommon. So either she's got like a hormonal thing, or I know you said that she's plus size in the novel, but you will oftentimes as a woman, if you are under eating and you're not eating enough, your body will not have a period. So I was like, I wonder if there's any like context in the book or no. That's
It's
just
devil work.
Yeah, that's just subcontext to me. Then I'm just like, oh, her mom's not feeding her enough. Her mom's starving her.
I mean, I wouldn't
Or
be
something
surprised
like that.
because
Yeah.
there's a lot of abuse. Like, would you want to talk about it later, Geraldine, or would you want to talk about it now?
I mean, we can kind of interweave it. It doesn't matter because it's all kind of related to the context.
Okay,
'Cause we're still on the shower scene, you know. But I mean, to me, it's not unrelatable. But like Bailey said, that is actually, like, thinking about it, that is really late because typically, normally, it's around like ages between 10 and 13. I would say 10 is probably the youngest that I've heard. I think someone I know has even got their period at like 9 years old. So it truly differs.
I mean,
I
they
was
talk
pretty
about
young.
it. They talk about it in the principal's office where she's like, "Yeah, she just got her period," and the principal's like, "What? Like, this is not a little late?" And she's like, "Yeah, and you know, I kind of understood the other students bullying her. I kind of wanted to just shake her."
That's
Yeah,
horrible.
I don't get that. That was a red flag to me. Like what?
That coach though seemed to be fairly sweet and nice to Carrie throughout the rest of the movie.
I
Though.
mean, yeah, because I mean, you sympathize with her because you're like, bro, like, I'm so sorry that you're going through this and you didn't know. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
And she did
But-
smack her.
but, like,
she was like, "Get a
imagine-
hold of yourself, smack."
Sometimes I wish somebody would do that to me, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Have you ever been
Carolyn.
smacked?
No, I mean, like, just like in general, not like in a like. But I mean,
No, no, no.
sometimes whenever I'm hysterical,
I need a man to put me in my place
not a
whenever I'm
man.
hysterical.
No, I mean just in general. Sometimes when I'm hysterical and I feel like I always tell my friends, like, whenever I'm having like my spiraling out, like, panic attack kind of things, I'm like, I need someone to be mean to me.
I appreciate-
because I'm meaner to myself than anybody could
I
be.
appreciate you telling me that. So next time I find you being hysterical on
You
the
just
podcast,
you just gave him an excuse. Yeah.
Great. I do it to myself, honestly. if I'm
it's a
being
very
honest.
nipply movie.
Yeah.
There's so many nipples in this
Yeah,
film.
that's another. Just considering all of the like costume direction and a lot of the scenes, like even the scene where like the girls are working out and taking those into context along with the shower scene, I'm like, oh, this is absolutely sexualized.
I want to ask you.
100%.
I want to ask you a question, Geraldine.
Okay.
I proposed this to Bailey the other day too. Like, with scenes like this, do you think how much of it do you think is a production decision versus a cultural phenomenon? Do you, when you watch a movie and you see like a bunch of nipples, do you think, oh, the director told him not to wear a bra, or do you think it's like, oh, well, they just didn't wear bras in the
I
late
think it's
'90s?
both, because I mean, this was filmed in this was the 70s.
Yeah.
Of course, that's what culturally what people were doing.
Mm.
They were not really wearing, or if they did wear bras, they weren't bras that are currently made like they are today. Like, they were very thin kind of bras.
Did
So,
that
I mean,
distract you at all while you were watching the movie?
No, because I don't sexualize women's nipples. It's a normal part of life. Like, I wish we could walk around without wearing bras comfortably, but I know that sometimes it's also a comfort thing. I mean, honestly, it's ingrained in me that I don't leave the house without a bra on. And it's hard because I want to be like, oh, you shouldn't have to, but it's like I can't just say that and then not also live by that. So it's just the way that we are raised in the southern areas, is that I don't know, you have to protect your virtue,
There's a lot
your
of
image.
shame. They don't design clothes for boob havers to have boobs.
They really don't. So then, like, things that might fit like right in general might not look right on you because of like your boob size, and that's just sucky, because then it makes you feel shame even more. So then there's just a constant repetition of like body shame throughout your life.
And that had a lot to do with the movie. I mean,
Yeah, it
they
did.
brought up, Carrie talked about her breasts a lot throughout the whole film. And I'm telling you, in the novel, you know, Stephen King is the master of cleavage.
Yeah, he's got a thing.
There's no point in the novel where you have to concern yourself over the way anybody's tits look. He will make sure
Yeah.
that you're aware.
That's just I just don't understand. Like, why is that important?
It's different. I get it, because I think men writing characters versus women writing characters is just inherently different. Like men write women in a certain way, and you know, women write men in a certain way. And I think it's just gendered. It's just like he's a man, he's thinking about tits. I think it's really
Yeah.
just that simple.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I will say though, like a lot of the people that read these novels, most readers in my in my purview and the kind of books that I look at in my life even are women. Women read books, and so whenever I find reviews and opinions on novels, it's usually from a woman. And the consensus I get on Stephen King more often than anything is that, wow, I loved it, great novel, he writes fantastic prose, don't like how often he talks about nipples. I don't understand it. It's unnecessary, it's unneeded. And that's what I hear more often than anything. And I think they're all right. I think they're right. Like it's definitely unnecessary and unneeded. But
He's just a man with a simple mind. And
Yeah.
he's like, women have breasts, must speak breasts.
But no, I get it, especially since a lot of the characters in these novels, I mean, we just read it, are underaged. So I can understand like how uncomfortable that makes people feel.
Yeah, I mean, but this one, it makes you feel a little bit better knowing that all of the actors are, you know, of age and older.
For sure, yeah.
Because they are, I think what's funny is like some of the girls were like in their 20s, like mid to late 20s as well, playing these 17-year-olds. But they actually looked like the age. I don't know. It worked out pretty well.
The only thing that bothered me is the girl that wore a hat. She always wore the hat.
We'll talk about that because that's part of my fun facts. Because I also hated the fuck out of it. So Betty Buckley, who played Mrs. Collins, which I know her name, it was different in the book. Miss Collins, she was also like 30 years old or 28 or something. So she was like not much different in age compared to the girls. So that did appear like very prominent to me because I was like, she looks very young as an educator. But also, you do see that a lot, where some of these people who are fresh out of college, you know, are teaching, you know, high school and stuff like that. Yeah. But I think she did a great job, though. Overall, her performance was awesome. I liked it a lot. And I also watched the behind the scenes, and they had combined the principal with the gym teacher for her character from the book. So that's probably why there were some differences as well there.
I thought everybody did a great job in this movie. Literally, the only performance that I'm going to criticize is just John Travolta's. Just because I thought he was goofy.
He is goofy, but I think that he plays an asshole really well. I thought that the back and forth between Billy and Chris.
I did not understand that at all. Did you?
No, I didn't understand it, but I thought they did really good.
Yeah, I thought they had like fun sort of bad kid energy together.
Yeah.
But the actual interaction, I was like, what is going on?
Yeah, they were like clearly in a young abusive relationship.
Yeah, but it was weird because she was like, let's stay here. I want to make out. Actually, no, I don't. Actually, yes, I do.
It was very weird. But it's almost like they just kept toying with each other, and that they just got off on that weird like power struggle. It felt like they both struggled for power in their relationship.
A lot of relationships are like that.
Yeah, but I kind of wanted to know more of like the background of like Chris and stuff like that, and Billy. Why the hell are they like that? I'm sure in the book maybe you get a little bit of it.
If I'm being honest, a lot of people just are like that. I think it confuses quite a few people when we have people that are just bullies and that just feed off the negative energy of other people. But I genuinely think that's something that comes up often. And you know, talking about the novels and bullies in the novels, if I'm being honest, what we see on screen is usually what we get in the books, and they're just bullies for the sake of being bullies. I mean, I'd argue that the bully from It is the exact same bully from Christine. Like, there's not really much of a difference. They're just there as like this negative energy to push against the protagonist.
Yeah.
And I wonder sometimes like how that came up from Stephen King, if he was bullied in like high school or something, and that's why he has a bully in every one of his books.
I'm not sure. I think it is just, it is a common occurrence.
Do you feel, I know, you know, you've mentioned about being bullied. Have you ever felt like you've bullied somebody else?
I know that I have.
You have?
Everybody has, if you want to get down and think about it. And I when I think long and hard about it, I feel horrible about myself for it. Or like having laughed with other people about something that may or may not have been true about something. Like, you know, when you're young and like, so that is one criticism that I can have of the overall theme of the movie, is that when you're young, you're stupid.
So you're saying we should forgive Chris?
No. I'm not saying that at all. I think what Carrie did was fucking girl boss.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I don't feel bad for them. However, I will say when you're young, you do things that you regret later in life. And then you look back and you're like, I was young and stupid and I would never do that again now.
When I was young, I've always wanted to have telekinetic powers. Is that just me or is that every kid? Think about like being able to make things
Why would
float.
we not want telekinetic powers? I also would love to like, I don't know, any of the tele powers, you know?
Yeah. What, you want to infiltrate somebody's mind and see what they're thinking?
Yeah, I need to know if they're talking ish about me. They probably
You'll
are.
find out one way or another, right?
Yeah. It always makes you nervous, doesn't it? Like,
no, I think my experience is very much one of like in the background. Okay. So I figure that people barely even know what my name is, much less that they're talking about me.
I don't know. I guess I got that main character energy in my head. So in my head, I'm like, oh my God, do they hate me? Do they love me? Like, why does it matter? Like, girl, I'm probably a background character to these people.
Yeah, probably.
I'm probably expressing myself out for nothing.
It'd be funny if you come up to them, you know, you're like, hey, what is all this about? I saw you look at me, and then they're just like, who are you?
Yeah. Embarrassing. So Sissy Spacek also, in preparing for her role for this film, isolated herself and did some studying of like religious texts and like looking at some of the artwork in there. And there is a video of Sissy talking about her time in Carrie, that play.
That I did a lot of research for. My husband, Jack Visk, was also doing the production design on that as well as on Badlands. And he had all this research. And he had these books of Doré etchings, and Doré did Bible stories. And there were people in really dramatic poses, and it was all just real, you know, people being eaten by lions and thrown off cliffs. They were going through really intense things, and I looked at all of these biblical etchings, and those were things that I would start out or end a scene in one of those melodramatic expressions and body language, and then it really was a wonderful thing.
I don't want to stay with you, Mama. Look, I'll answer the door and I'll tell him that you're sick. I'll tell him that you changed your mind. Sit down and be quiet.
I didn't go to acting school long, but the thing that I did learn was sense memory and how to weave your own life into your characters. And that's, you know, that's kind of been my thing. That's what I've done. I kind of stayed away from everybody, felt alone, and wrote poetry in the attic. And I really got into Carrie. Of course, it was all, you know, it was all in the book. We had Stephen King's wonderful book, so I could go to that and pull details out of it. But that was when I think I first understood how important research is.
It's so lovely to hear person after person talk about, like, they all reference Stephen King and like his novel and how like helpful it was that they had that guiding factor in it. It's so lovely to see.
That is the Bible. That is their tool.
Yeah, it really is. It's lovely to see Sissy Spacek. What a name, right? Sissy
Right.
Spacek.
She's iconic.
She's
I love
amazing.
her.
She looks great. She looks fantastic. I'm so happy that she was involved in this movie because I think she is what really sold the whole thing.
We'll talk about it shortly, but she was almost not cast as Carrie, and I could not imagine this movie without her.
She just really made it, and I know she doesn't really resemble the character in the novel, but I think she does a phenomenal job of portraying somebody who we empathize with.
I can agree, because I mean, we all know those people who are just kind of different than everyone else that, you know, growing up, I'm sure we've all experienced that. The people that people typically go to make fun of, and it's kind of, you know, it's just very stinky because, you know, you feel bad for them.
No,
So,
for me, I was the guy. I was the person being made fun of.
I mean, you still feel bad for that person as an outsider if you are not the person who is currently being made fun of. I mean, it really varied because like I'm sure my situation was very, very, very minor compared to some other people's situations. Because I mean, my bullying was just mean girls, you know. It wasn't really anything like, well, some of it was men, but that's fine. We're not going to talk about it. You know, I don't know. Bullying and experiencing the bully is just different. But like the way that people do go about it and the people that they do target, it's so strange. And like somebody who is very religious, a lot of the time in the South it was out of the norm to be the opposite.
Yeah.
So people who did not really follow your beliefs or challenge your beliefs as a religious person, you would definitely be a target.
I really enjoy that this movie really speaks up for that. You know, we just did It, and I feel like that movie really talked about a lot of the struggles we have as kids and how they echo as adults.
Oh, yeah.
And in this novel, I feel like we again approached a very human element of suffering that people go through, not so much as children as It, but more so like in your teens. And I just have a great appreciation for Stephen King and how he uses horror elements to really emphasize the real life struggles of people.
I knew that you would enjoy this one.
It's so human.
I told you that you would enjoy this one because I just knew, especially the way that you responded to it. I was like, oh yeah, he's definitely going to love this one.
I really enjoyed it.
But I mean, like this movie at the root of it is about finding yourself. You know, like she's like, I don't want to believe these things. Like she has this power. That's ultimately like she's discovering herself. That could be a metaphor for that as well. She is discovering that she has these powers. I don't know how much in depth it goes in the novel regarding those powers because I have not read the novel once again. But I feel like she's discovering herself with these powers, and she's gaining confidence in herself through going to prom with Tommy. And so she wants to kind of branch out from her shitty life, which is normal.
For sure, yeah. I mean, a lot of people want to escape, and I think we're always being held back by one thing or another, be it like your family, or sometimes it's a job. Sometimes you feel like you have to keep a certain job to, keep living, but it's not always the case.
I mean, ultimately, we're all uncomfortable with change. Nobody responds very well to change.
I mean, even in this movie, there's a moment where Sissy Spacek's character, Carrie, she goes back to her mother and she wants to find comfort, and she was just rallying against everything that she was raised doing. But when she goes back to her mother, she's like, we'll pray over this. And Carrie immediately is like, yes, let's do that, because that is her comfort.
That's what she's used to.
Yeah.
And I think it's so sad that because of her experience, like trying to branch out from what she knows, like she's like reprimanded and like shunned by her mother just because she just goes out of the norm, and she's trying to discover herself. But it's like, that's what you're supposed to do at that age.
It is, but it's impossible, because like as soon as she does it, her mother gets mad at her, and the second she does go out and does something, there's a whole other group of people that are preying on her downfall.
So sad.
It is a sad movie. It's a tragedy.
It is a tragedy, but it's also like the end result is far worth it, far worth all of it. So a little bit further, since we're in like it's rooted in high school kind of shit. The name of the high school is Bates High School, which is really fun. It's a reference to Norman Bates and Psycho, which is awesome. Apparently, Brian De Palma was going to have the composer, Bernard or Berman, something. It's a long name. He was going to actually have him do the score. He passed away beforehand. But they do include the 4-note violin theme that is used in Psycho over and over into this film multiple times.
I will say the score that we did end up getting is phenomenal. I had so much fun. During the workout scene, they had the score really match with what they were doing, and I thought it was great. There were some really like groovy, like early synths that were being used, and as soon as they came up, I was like really jamming to it.
One of my favorite parts, but I don't know why, it was just so human, was Tommy and his like pals going to get like fitted for their tuxes.
It's very,
it's a very goofy scene, but I also loved it and hated it at the same time.
I liked it just because of how casual it was. Like, like you said, it was very human. It was just like something that people did. They're going to prom. They have to do this. It didn't really necessarily pertain to the plot. It was more so just something that was happening.
And you know what's funny is like Carrie is experiencing this by herself because she's making her own dress, which is also girl boss. Love that. And she's going and trying on makeup and stuff, and you can see somebody in the background that kind of staring. Yeah. But like nobody's helping her.
Yeah, I loved it all. It's a very teen movie. I actually told Bailey that it reminded me of a Studio Ghibli movie. Not a particular one, but just in the vibe that like a lot of those movies will take a break of like narrative, plot, moving the story along, and just let you breathe in the world for a second. And I felt like the whole makeup thing when she visits the library, as well as them trying the tuxedos on, is all kind of a part of that, where like it's not necessarily doing anything to further the story, but it's letting us breathe and just live with these characters for a second.
And you kind of have like a sense of like, okay, maybe things are going to be okay, but everyone knows the end result no matter what, because it's so iconic.
There's a point at the end of the movie right before that bucket falls where you're like, this movie could end right here and be like a sweet story about a girl who found her way.
Imagine that. It could have been perfect. So speaking of that scene, the dizzying camera shot, I also misspelled that, LOL. I fucking hated that shot.
It lasted just way too long.
Way too long.
Just way too long.
And I was like, why did they make this choice?
I think that was the point, though. I think it was supposed to show you. It was supposed to be like the sweet scene, but it's also like the tension building as you get dizzier and dizzier and dizzier. I liked it personally.
It was hard for me to watch. It kind of reminded me of.
It's great.
It reminded me of a lot of those movies that do just way too much flashing lights, and they hurt my eyes. And I'm like, no.
It's also like you can't do that. I'm sorry. You can't just do all these. You can, but like you shouldn't do all these flashing lights because of like there's a huge population that like has epilepsy and stuff, and like or get triggered by those flashing lights. That's just not smart. It's dangerous.
I definitely got dizzy during the scene. It was sweet for the first few seconds, And then I was
No.
like, it lasted way too long.
I mean, like Bailey said, creatively, it could also even be more symbolic to like the tension building or
I mean,
even
they're going
her.
down a spiral. You know.
What did you think about this little relationship that Tommy develops with Carrie at the
I think
end?
secretly, I think he probably could have developed feelings for her. I know that he was ultimately doing a nice thing by taking her because she otherwise wouldn't have had this experience. So I thought that it was a very noble and nice thing that him and Sue came up with the idea to do. I appreciated what they were trying to do. It does kind of feel like a pity situation.
For sure.
But I also think that secretly he could have developed feelings for her because, I mean, she was the only one who responded to his poem in class and stuff. And
In the movie, that's kind of the vibe I got, that
Yeah.
like he was starting to like her. He was starting to fall for her.
Is it different in the book?
In the book, yes. In the book, he loves Sue.
yeah.
And like he would do, and in the movie, it's kind of like he's a little hesitant to do this whole thing
Mm-hmm.
with Carrie. Though I do think that actually kind of adds to the romance at the end of the movie. But in
Yeah.
the novel, he's immediately down because he will do anything for Sue.
That kind of disappoints me. I like it better in the movie, personally.
Yeah, but in the movie, I kind of get the sense of like he might leave Sue for Carrie.
I don't think he would have, but I also understand the feeling. But like, it was also weird that like you're just gonna kiss her on the mouth. Like,
knew you
people
were gonna
just
bring this
people
up.
just do that so casually.
I knew you were gonna bring.
Well, it's just.
It's just a sweet
Yeah,
moment. Jared.
I mean,
No, but Frank also had a minute there because you were like, oh well, isn't he like cheating on Stu? And
I was just trying to add commentary.
I know, but I said this. So I was like, you're assuming that they're boyfriend and girlfriend. You don't know that. They could have been friends that were going to prom. It is never insinuated that him and Sue are in like a romantic relationship.
So is that your preferred headcanon?
Yeah.
And that he gets with Carrie at the end of the movie?
Yeah.
well, why would you not want that? I mean,
It's
the,
just you
the,
see
the
Carrie-
popular guy gets with the girl who everyone supposedly doesn't like for no real good reason other
You
than
guys are
she's
projecting
different.
so hard
I
right
am
now.
projecting.
Yeah.
Let me project.
So
okay?
so you guys are both Tommy Carrie shippers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. fair
It's
enough.
just-
I
I
love
also thought he was
Sue.
charming.
It's just like, yeah, I thought it was charming.
But he was mean in the beginning.
He was mean in the beginning. That's what makes it even more charming at the end. Listen to me. He picks her up and he's like, man, I don't want to fucking do this. And then he picks her up and then it turns out like she's more normal like than he thought she was. She's not actually that weird. She's just tortured at home.
Well,
and
what
she's
about
actually
Sue?
really sweet and she's just
What about
doesn't
Sue?
know how to like be confident. It was he was showing her how to be confident and being like,
Yeah.
hey, it's okay to be
Exactly.
vulnerable. That was so cute.
And she
dog.
was like, "Oh no, I don't want anyone to vote for us. No, no, no." And then he's like, "Why wouldn't we vote for ourselves? Let's do it." And then
that was
he's
so
like,
sweet.
It was cute.
Yeah. And
But also,
Sue?
but what about her? She serves nothing to the story.
No, I like Sue. I like Sue a lot. I thought it was very sweet and valiant of her.
Sue is the only one that from the beginning is trying to be sweet to Carrie.
She participated though.
But she immediately felt guilt for it. And that's the whole reason she set the whole situation with Tommy up in the first
And
place.
if she loses her boyfriend, then it's fine.
Yeah.
I don't even think that they were boyfriend and girlfriend. I think they were just friends.
I will say it's stated often in the novel that like Sue is very sweet and she's self-aware of like her looks, her popularity. She's already knows that she's gonna live a good, happy life.
Well, I mean, so that's good that you have that, awareness. I mean, I'm not going to say she serves nothing to the story because she does.
Yeah.
Obviously, she sets this whole thing up, and it is nice because it's a very redeeming characteristic that she does feel this guilt and wants Carrie to experience something nice because she knows she wouldn't get it otherwise.
Does the pity add anything? Like, is that mean a little bit? And like, do it out of pity.
No, well, I know that hers is probably out of guilt, but also because she knows she feels bad about what she participated in and
Yeah.
what they did, which is not okay. 1,000%
I
wrong.
will say the pressure in the movie of like questioning, like, is Tommy or Sue, are they in on this at all? I was
Yeah.
kind of going back and forth on that and how much it had to do
But I
with
mean,
it.
if you're Carrie, I would be questioning everyone's
Oh, yeah, for
motives
sure.
the whole time as well.
Well, I have a personal question for you
Okay.
now. If it was you, like let's say you're in Carrie's shoe, would you prefer to know that somebody's doing something out of pity, or would you rather just
I would wanna
have
know.
a good time?
I'd want to know because men are, and also women are cruel. And that kind of happened to me a lot where these girls would be like, oh yeah, I'll talk to him for you growing up. Because I would be a little nervous, and they would be like, they're friends, they're pals. They like would Regina George me, like Mean Girls, or they would like be like, oh yeah, he totally likes you.
Oh no.
They would do that kind of
was
stuff
very
to me.
common.
And these are your friends?
They were my quote unquote friends, yes.
Dang.
And they were actually the popular mean girls in school. It's a real thing, and it's hard to go through that. So like, I don't fucking trust anybody like otherwise, because people were just, especially when you're young, I just feel like you're just, hormones are taking over and you're just mean.
I wonder if that's why we relate so much in Carrie. Like we can see so much of us and like not knowing what to do, being a little clueless. Like I know she was clueless about her period, but we all kind of experience other things in a very similar way where we don't know what we're doing.
Nobody does.
Yeah.
And I mean, because like I saw this meme the other day, and it's so true. It's like when we were young, we thought, our parents had everything together. We think our worldview is so different. And then when we are now their age, when they had us, and we're like, what the fuck are we doing? They knew nothing either.
Apparently, yeah. But it seemed like they were such an authoritative figure that they knew everything.
But nobody knows what they're doing.
No.
Even in their like 60s and 70s, we're still figuring life out.
You just got to pretend,
Yeah, fake it till you make it. But so the ending of the movie is very different from the ending of the novel, and in fact, Stephen King liked the ending in the movie better than the ending of his own book.
Oh, wow! we don't hear that often.
We don't hear that often about
Stephen
any
King.
of his the adaptations that we've gotten so far. I mean, it's good to critique it and stuff, and I don't know. I think that this one was really good, even though I think this was one of the oldest ones that we've watched, I would say.
This is the oldest one in the Stephen King season. And in general, it's just one of the oldest films that we watch. I think the only one that might be older is Texas Chainsaw.
Mm-hmm. Because Texas Chainsaw was 73, I believe. 73 or 74.
It might have been 74 too. This one is an old one, but this one is so charming. It kind of has like those indie movie kind of vibes.
But it works so well because the creative choices that Brian De Palma did, like the side by side where you see the front of these people trying to leave the door and like the back of the people.
I halfway wish I was there.
Oh my god, I wish I was there in that creative space too. Yeah. That was amazing. All of the different things that they got to do, so cool. This was a major box office hit for the United States, grossing over $33 million in the U.S. from a $1.8 million investment.
That's fantastic. Love
Especially
it.
for the 70s as well. What the hell?
Yeah, phenomenal. That's a dream.
That is.
And thank God, because like I said, this is all what jump-started Stephen King's career.
It really did. And could you imagine if he didn't touch the manuscript again?
I want to say that this book was published when he was 27.
27 years old. See, that kind of gives me hope.
Yeah, see? Exactly.
It gives all of us hope. It's never too late.
It's never too late.
Never too late. He's still publishing books.
Still, yeah.
Still. So Sissy Spacek was not considered for the role of Carrie until her husband, and he's also an art director named Jack Fisk, convinced the director Brian De Palma to allow her to audition. Until that, De Palma was wedded to the idea of Amy Irving, the one who played Sue, playing Carrie. And then when Spacek got the part instead, De Palma gave Irving the smaller role of Sue. And you'll hear Sissy Spacek talk about that experience and what she did for the audition in the Choosing Carrie video.
Exciting.
Sissy and I met on a film called Badlands, Terry Malick directed, and that was in 1972 out in Colorado. Later, after Badlands, the first De Palma film I did was Phantom of the Paradise, and I was working as production designer. When that film was over, he asked me to work on Carrie. My wife, Sissy, who worked as a set dresser, decorator on Phantom, helping me out in a pinch because we had no money or any crew, read the book, Carrie, and wanted to try out for the part.
Sissy had done a couple of films, but I had my eye set for a young actress I had seen in a movie where she has to get an abortion, and she was very touching and moving, and I thought this girl was going to get the part.
Brian was meeting with everyone, and he would meet us in big groups, and he'd have one person read Carrie, and then, he'd mix it all up. So I was feeling a little weird because I was only testing for one. So I didn't have as big a shot as everybody else did of getting in the film. So I got this commercial, and it just happened to be on the same day as the test, and I thought, oh, I'll call Brian and see what I can do.
I said, Sissy, I think you should take the commercial because I got my eye on this girl. I think she's going to be something.
I think I said some expletive and hung up the phone. It just made me so mad. I reread the book the day before the screen test, and I think I rubbed Vaseline in my hair, and I found some old sailor suit that my mother had made for me in 7th grade, and I took the hem out of it, and I was really into it, and I was feeling very sorry for myself, which was perfect for the character. So when I went into the test the next morning, I don't think I even washed my face. They had hair and makeup there, and they saw me come in, and they just ran for me because I would just look so awful. And of course, I was like, no. I think that I felt so used and abused at that point because I knew Brian, I was not his favorite. And that worked for me. I just decided I was going to get it.
She came in and did the test and, of course, blew everybody away.
Because I was working on the film's production designer, the next day I went to see the results of all the tests. And the girl that Brian had wanted came on and did her rendition of Carrie, and then Sissy came on and just like knocked people's socks off. It was so great. Well, Sissy was waiting for me out in the parking lot of the car because she was anxious to see how it went.
And he came running out and said, "Hey, you got the part. Ask for whatever you want." Which was very little, I might add.
How sweet.
Isn't it?
That's a woman that knows what she wants.
Isn't that so funny that that they didn't want her?
That makes sense. I mean, that's a lot of the case. You don't ever know what the right fit is. You know, we did Misery earlier on in the season, and similar things happened in that, where like the producer was very upset that they didn't keep the foot chopping off scene. Because in the novel, he doesn't get his ankles broken like that. He gets his feet chopped off. But then when it was presented to audience and stuff, and like it's so iconic, the scene that what does happen in the film, that he was like, oh, I was wrong. And I think there's another situation here where like the right person ended up getting the role.
Oh my God, yeah.
And thanks to themselves, thanks for them like speaking up for themselves and like really going for it and doing everything they can to take it.
I could not imagine anybody else playing Carrie. Like she has, I mean, it is such a cult classic that like when you think of Carrie, you think of Sissy Spacek. You don't really think of any of these other renditions of it. Not that they're bad or anything, but
she's the iconic one.
She's the mother Carrie, Queen Carrie. And I got my dates wrong. So I said that it took 3 days to film the prom scene. I was wrong. So Sissy slept in her bloody clothes for 3 days during filming for continuity purposes. She didn't want to mess it up at all.
That's the kind of thing that you appreciate, I'm sure.
Yes.
You love continuity.
Love continuity. And it took over 2 weeks to film the prom scene and required a total of 35 takes.
The novel is kind of split up by the prom scene. It's kind of like everything that happened before and everything that happened after.
That's really interesting because the way that it's set up, it's very quick, but it also has such good pacing that the prom scene is a little bit more drawn out because it's the big climax. Yeah. And it almost makes you wonder why. Like that is something that I was reading about that I was like, I wonder why that like it is the way that it is, because like in the beginning of the movie there's not a lot of like lead up to this prom situation, and then the prom happens and then it's like the big climax and then like that's it.
Mm-hmm. There's a little aftermath in the novel where, and I've heard some varying opinions about this kind of thing. The book doesn't end with Carrie. In the book Carrie is gone by the time we get like a good bit extra after. The novel doesn't end where her story ends. It keeps going. But I like knowing the aftermath personally. I like knowing what happens later on.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I love the film's ending though. I kind of agree with Stephen King where like it really got me. Like I did get jump scared in the movie.
I mean, I saw it coming.
You saw it coming?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And I feel like the reaction was a little delayed, so that was a little disappointing to me, too.
Oh, wow. I think completely opposite. I think this is like, it's one of the scariest scenes that we've seen in any of these movies. What do you think, Bailey? Do you relate to my experience here?
I mean, yeah, like I definitely felt a lot of tension going up to the thing, but it was like by the time that she gets to the sign that says for sale and she's about to put the flowers down, I was like, oh, okay, they're just doing like a sweet thing or whatever. But when Carrie comes, I don't know, that did spook me a little bit.
Scared me.
It did, yeah, it did get me. I mean,
it's just Geraldine's a veteran.
I wasn't like terrified, but I was like, they got me.
That really got me. And in general, the performance we get to see from Sue Snell's character afterwards is like they're related. It's her actual mother, and they're both freaking out in the bed. Mm-hmm. Wow, like I thought that was phenomenal.
It's super cool. I love that they actually are mother and daughter. That just adds a whole different level to it. So some cool things. So in Carrie's house, the statue of the religious figure shot with arrows represents Saint Sebastian. It is not a crucifix and does not represent Jesus Christ. However, I thought it was Jesus the whole time.
As did I. He did have very curly hair to be Jesus.
And also creepy eyes.
Yeah, the eyes did look creepy.
I was like, okay, like don't look at me. Initially, so this is the one that you hate. the Norma is her character name, the one with the little baseball hat. PJ Souls is her name. She was only cast for 2 weeks. But after she hit Sissy Spacek over the head with her red baseball hat during the volleyball scene, Brian De Palma decided to keep her around longer and asked her to wear it the entire time.
Yeah, she wore it during prom.
It made me rage. I was like, "What the fuck are you still wearing that goddamn hat? Take it off!"
Well, some people have the thing, you know. There's the guy that always wears a beanie, the girl that always wears a jacket, you know.
I get that, but there are times and places.
Okay, now you're starting to sound Bible Belty. You're like, you're disrespecting the tradition of prom.
No, I mean,
you're supposed to be dressing nice.
Okay, like for example, if Patrick and I are going on a fancy date and we dress up, take that GD hat off. You're not wearing that hat.
Okay, but to be fair, her date was like just as much as like an ass as she was.
What do you guys think about ruffles on the tuxedos?
Oh, it's so silly, goofy.
It reminds me of Dumb and Dumber. That's what it makes me think of.
So, like, if you were going on the supposed date with Patrick to this high fancy thing, could he wear the ruffles?
The only time a man can wear ruffles is if it's like those ruffly pirate shirts or like vampiric kind of shirts.
So not on the tuxedo.
Not on the tuxedo. But if you are dressing up like a vampire, kind of like pirate-y kind of vibes, then yeah, any day. But not regularly, not like that kind of that looks very comedic. Unless we're doing a bit.
Okay. Well, does your husband have one in his wardrobe by chance?
No,
Any kind of roughly?
No, he does not.
Okay, fair enough.
Unfortunately, but yeah. So PJ Souls. Also, PJ Souls is in Halloween 1978, the original Halloween film.
So we'll be coming up to that eventually. We'll see her again.
We will.
Maybe
so
not wearing a hat.
I also, because as soon as I saw her on screen, I was like, this bitch in Carrie too. I didn't know that. Legend. Also, PJ Souls said that in a 2010 interview that Steven Spielberg often came to the set at Brian De Palma's invitation because De Palma told him that there were a lot of cute girls down here. Souls said that Spielberg asked out most of the women on the set, Souls included, and Amy Irving, the one who played Sue Snell, was the only one who accepted. Irving and Spielberg were married from 1985 to 1989 and had a son together. That's kind of creepy though.
It is super creepy, but that was the
luckily
culture
they weren't
back then,
like
I'm sure.
luckily they weren't like underage kind of thing because that would change the whole story. But that's still weird.
That would have been 20 years earlier.
See, that's further evidence that the locker room and shower scenes were sexualized, in my opinion.
I agree.
Also, the ring that Amy Irving wears throughout the movie was a gift to her from Stephen King, the author of the book the film was based on.
How sweet.
It's very sweet. So many cool things about it. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I really wish we had footage of like Stephen King on any of the sets. Like, for example, I know he wasn't there for The Shining.
Right.
He wasn't there in person, so. I
like it when an author is like heavily included in the production process. Like they are behind the scenes and stuff, and they're like, oh yes, I love this. Yes, this looks so good.
I kind of really like Stephen King's take on this, is where, he's not on set for a lot of these, and it gives him the opportunity to, when a movie is good, he gets to say that, oh yeah, I'm responsible for that. And if it sucks, he says, oh, I didn't have anything to do with that. So he gets both of them.
That is smart on his end, actually. So Carrie apparently is based on a composite of 2 girls that Stephen King observed while attending grade school and high school. One of them, he recalled, she was a very peculiar girl who came from a very peculiar family. Her mother wasn't a religious nut like the mother in Carrie. She was a game nut, a sweepstakes nut who subscribed to magazines for people who entered contests. The girl had 1 change of clothes for the entire school year, and all the other kids made fun of her.
Man, that's rough.
That is rough.
But there's so many things you can't control. Like, I remember there being kids in school that got made fun of because of the way they smelled, because their parents were chain smokers. And if your parents are smoking in the house all day long, when you go to school, you can't help the way you smell.
Dude, I can only imagine how horrible I smelled because I grew up around, my parents used to be smokers. So they used to be chain smoking. I used to be around this, they would be smoking, driving us to school kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I used to get that secondhand smoke all the time.
Where we lived, though, I think it's more rare for somebody to not grow up in a smoking household.
Right?
I just remember
literally
in high school,
everybody that I knew
I'm
grew
just
up in a
hopeful.
smoking household.
I'm hopeful that our generation has kind of stopped some of the smoking. I know that there is still a huge population of smokers, but I know that it's mostly vaping. But there's also a huge population who is like, ew, no, smoking's gross, and I'm like, yes.
I've never smoked anything in my entire life.
I have.
Nothing.
Me neither.
Though I do want to start.
No.
I just think, it looks so cool. When
it does look cool. I'm not going to lie, but it feels unnatural.
What y'all need to do is you need to get those fake cigarettes that they use on films. Because they look exactly the same. They turn the bright red. They give you the vapor, but you don't actually breathe anything in.
You know what's really funny? I'm gonna tell a really funny story.
Hit it.
So when I was 18, I was like, I have to buy my first pack of cigarettes, right?
Oh, wow.
So I did.
You have to?
You don't have to, of course. But of course, they also raised the age, thank goodness, because dummies like me, I'm sure. Because I think they raised the age to 21 now. But so I bought my first pack of cigarettes, except for I didn't want real cigarettes because I didn't want the nicotine. I didn't want to get addicted. So I bought my first pack of cigarettes. They were actually the ones that they used in theater, like theater productions.
Cool.
They're herbal cigarettes. So I was like, I'm going to smoke these instead because they're healthier. They tasted awful. What the fuck was I doing?
I
Did
think
you do
they
it,
all
though?
taste awful, Geraldine.
Were you into it?
I tried, and I was just like, this burns, and I don't like it.
Did you ever take a photo or anything?
No.
I just want a little video of me like looking cool in a cafe, black and white.
We'll have to get you like one of
that,
the.
though.
Yeah.
We'll have to get you one of the film cigarettes because they're like electronic.
And I'm
now.
wearing a trench coat and I have a hat and I'm a detective.
Where were you at the scene of the crime? You know,
I just
kind
love
of-
it. It's just a
yeah.
good vibe, isn't it? Am I
love
crazy?
I love a spy vibe. Spy vibes are the best.
But you're thinking like film noir.
Yeah.
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 Like, where were you on the night of blah, 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 you know?
But also,
Well,
it's kind of giving me coffee and cigarettes, that movie vibes.
I've never seen it.
You would love that movie. It's fantastic. It's just people drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes, and it's all in black and white.
What a dream that is,
Right?
right? Am I
It's-
crazy? Those are great vibes.
Great vibes. I love it. Like, as much as I love coffee, I can see how the two would pair well together, but I can't do it.
Me neither. One, because I don't smoke. Two, I can hardly drink caffeine anymore.
Oh no,
But I love coffee.
I'm a caffeine nut. Love it. Okay. This is going to be a really weird piece of knowledge that I found, but I thought it was interesting. So Nancy Allen, the one who played Chris, one of the bullies, later married Brian De Palma in 1979 and appeared in several of his films following their marriage, including Dressed to Kill in 1980 and Blowout in 1981. The latter film reunited her with Carrie's co-star John Travolta. Allen and De Palma divorced in 1984, so they were married for quite a bit of time. But that's also kind of weird. You hear that a lot. The actors to dating their directors or co-stars pipeline. It's always weird, especially if like you're the director. I don't know.
Yeah, and I feel like there used to be way more. Maybe this is a good thing, or maybe it's because we live in the Bible Belt. But I'm a full supporter of divorce. Like, if you guys aren't working out, divorce. Like, it's not the biggest deal in the world. You know, it's not necessarily one marriage for your whole life. Because nowadays, I feel like we kind of push ourselves to be like, it has to work out. You know, and it leads to like a toxic kind of relationship where like two people are unhappy, especially when they have kids. It's like,
it sucks,
the whole stay together for the kids thing. I don't subscribe to that at all.
Yeah, because
whatsoever.
then if you're going to be unhappy together while the kid is still growing,
It's not good for them.
It's not good for them.
Yeah. So I do think that like on a lot of these LA people, especially back in the day, it's not uncommon to go onto their Wikipedia page and find out they've married like 4 or 5 different people.
Oh my God, yeah. They stay getting married
Yeah.
and then they have kids. And I'm just like, phew, okay. Cool piece of knowledge is that the book that Carrie reads in the library, The Secret Science Behind Miracles, is in fact a real book. And it's written by Max Freedom Long in 1948, with the ISBN actually being a real ISBN number. The telekinesis definition from the book that Carrie reads is actually in the real book.
Wow, that's a good piece of set design.
You know, I say I love a good montage of people doing research in movies, whether it's on the computer, in books, and I often think, I wonder if that's a real thing. Like, especially like one of my favorite montages of someone doing research, Twilight.
Who does the research?
Bella. She types in the cold one, and it brings up all the stuff about vampires.
And that's all she types?
I tried to do it one time, it never worked. And I was like, damn, how do they do this shit? They make it look so real. It's so cool.
I think about that a lot too, just because of whoever the graphic designer is making it look like a computer and stuff. That just looks so difficult.
It's so cool. It's so cool. I can definitely appreciate the art. Apparently, Carrie is her real name is Carrietta.
Beautiful name.
It is.
Carrietta.
I actually like that though. That is really pretty.
Me too, yeah.
Margaret calls her that at the beginning of when she gets home, like gets sent home from school. Piper Laurie says that she wounds her character, Margaret White, like the wounds that she inflicts on herself towards the end of the film were not created by makeup. She actually did that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Dedicated woman.
I don't think that'd be allowed now, but we have rules now. SAG has a bunch of like policies now where you can do this and can't do that if you want to keep being a member. I don't think they'd allow that.
Probably not. Sissy Spacek would later perform the audiobook for Carrie, which is really cool.
That is so cool.
That is so sick.
I love it. And then some really cool pieces of knowledge about the awards. So I don't ever hear enough about like horror movies getting nominated for awards, but like these earlier films did. Like these Stephen King adaptations, a lot of them did get some nominations. So at the Academy Awards, Sissy Spacek was nominated for an Oscar in the Best Actress in a Leading Role category. Piper Laurie was nominated for Best Actress in a Supporting Role. The Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films nominated the film for a Golden Scroll in the category of Best Horror Film, and the Avoriaz Fantastic Film Festival gave the grand prize to Brian De Palma. A special mention was made out to Sissy Spacek for her acting. The Edgar Allan Poe Awards nominated Carrie for an Edgar for Best Motion Picture. That sounds freaking cool. Edgar Allan Poe Awards. You can win an Edgar. I would die.
I wonder what the trophy looks like.
Probably a raven.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Linda Blair auditioned for the role of Carrie, but turned it down, fearing being typecast. I don't know if she was typecast, but she's been in several Exorcist films. So, I mean, I still think she would have been very good in this film, though.
Yeah, I can get the fear, though. A lot of people do end up living in their own shadow.
Yeah. Jill Clayburgh also auditioned for the title role, but was passed over. Farrah Fawcett also auditioned for the part, but dropped out due to scheduling conflicts from Charlie's Angels in 1976.
What a different movie that would have been.
And my last piece of random knowledge is Martin Scorsese saw the film 3 times when it was released in theaters, which I love. That's so weird.
It's a good movie.
It's a great movie.
It's a good film. And, you know, it's a horror film, but I feel like you can make a lot out of it. Like, I don't feel like we get to much horror elements whatsoever until the end of the movie.
No, yeah.
Otherwise, it could be like a teen drama.
It could. Absolutely could. So we talked about the shower scene a lot, but I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the behind the scenes, because obviously a lot of the girls were very nervous about it. So I, at this time, will play a shower scene behind the scenes video.
Fortunately, Sissy had to do all this sort of naked soaping of her body before any of the girls got into the shower. And at that point, I was allowing the kids to see the rushes, so they thought, oh my God, I mean, Sissy can do this, we can do this.
That shower scene, of course, I worried about that and wanted it to work, wanted it to be authentic, wanted to be able to lose myself in it and not think about being naked in front of the world. I went to Brian and I said, Brian, I'm so worried about this scene. What's it like? And he thought for a minute. Well, Sissy, it's like getting hit by a Mack truck. Like a Mack truck. It's like getting hit by a Mack truck. He obviously wanted shock. And I went to Jack, who we had decided would be in the shower with me, putting the blood in my hand, because that was going to be out of frame. And then I'd bring it up to see it. And I said, Jack, he said it would be like getting hit by a Mack truck. What's getting hit by a Mack truck like?
Sissy didn't quite know how to make sense of it. I, as a kid, had been run over by a car. So I started telling her what it was like to be hit by a car. And she was able to use that. You know, Brian's suggestion and my sort of visualization from having been through it to become Carrie's reaction to finding blood coming out of her body. And between every take, I would tell her the story of how I was hit by a car. And, you know, it was at Christmas time. I was looking around at Christmas lights and everything was happiness. And then I saw a car coming and then it was veering away and then suddenly it hit me and then I was like trapped underneath and couldn't get out.
When I'm playing that scene, I am walking down a road looking at the Christmas lights. And when I see the blood in my hand, it's when he looks over and sees the car. That's what I was thinking. That's what was going on in my mind during the shower scene.
We got to the point where she comes out of the shower for the first time, and I said, well, maybe I'll try to do this like cinema verite. I'll just try to follow Sissy as she comes out and see what the girls do.
Amazing. Phenomenal. What I've never thought about doing anything like that. Like, and she sold me on, like, she does look like she's like going down the street looking at Christmas lights or whatever. And that reaction to like try to quantify like what is needed for the film, and it's like being hit by a car or whatever, and that being her like physical reaction to the blood. Amazing. Like, that's spectacular work.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Like,
that's just so genius. And she is just such an iconic performer. And I just love her so much because she's just so good in everything she's in.
Yeah. And I mean, we saw the clip earlier about her doing so much research for the role. And she just seems like she's really invested in her roles.
So let's talk, I guess, some more about, I guess you read the book.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about the differences that you have seen.
So I'll mention what are the most important differences to me.
Okay.
Like I said, I think this adaptation is done very well as far as like, it's almost 1-to-1 throughout a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest, I will say, the three main differences I'll say for me that actually make a difference throughout the film is one, Billy's character, Carrie's mother character, Margaret, and the ending of the story. I feel like are the three major different things. Like I talked about earlier, Billy is downright evil. In the novel, he is sadistic, if I'm being honest with you. In the movie, I feel like he's kind of just like a silly prankster, popular guy or whatever. But in the novel, he is just like the things he says about people, the things he says about Carrie, how excited he is to go through this whole ordeal, how excited he is to kill the pig is very dark. Like in the movie, it's just like what they do or whatever to get the pig's blood. But it's a lot darker in the novelization itself. And with that being said, you can say a lot of the same things about Carrie's mother in the novel Margaret. You do see a lot of the abuse. You see how she talks down to Carrie. You also see her getting shoved into a closet in the movie. In the novel, she also gets shoved into a closet, but she stays in there for days. She stays in the closet for days to the point where she defecates herself in the closet, and then the smell of her defecation makes her vomit in the closet. So she is just stuck there with all these awful things. And so she is just abused to another level in the novel, I will say. And the other main difference is the ending. The ending in the movie, it's the school really that gets burnt down. But in the novel, it's kind of part of the town. And one of the differences, for example, is that she does the thing with the school, and also she decidedly does it in the school. Like in the movie, it's like this whole thing happens to her, and everything that follows is a reaction. But in the novel, she actually leaves the school for a second, and then decides to go back in to do all that, to wreak all that havoc. When she comes out, she's not done. She like blows up oil tankers. She blows up gasoline stations. She goes as far as emptying all the fire hydrants and all the fire trucks using their hoses of water. So even the firefighters can't do anything to put anything out.
She's so badass.
She wreaked so much more havoc in the novel than she does in the movie. Also, she's smiling in the novel. She's smiling the whole time, full grin. Whether on the movie, I feel like she had like this blank face throughout more of it.
I think that it actually would have been creepier had she been smiling through it all.
Yeah, way more creepy.
But she also did such a good job with her eyes and stuff like that, telling the story that she was pissed at this point. Like she was like, okay, y'all gonna fuck with me on my prom?
Yeah. I actually do prefer the movie ending. I like that a little more. I think the novel ending was just a little over the top, if I'm being honest. Not to say I'm glad it exists. Like and reading it, oh my gosh, that was a lot to go through. And like I said before, love the structure of it. Love how we go from current perspective to it's already happened and here's a book about it. Here's an excerpt from that book to interviews between the neighbors. It keeps your intrigue in it the whole time. Well, I feel like the movie, a small critique could be that like you can get boring. You can get bored during all like that buildup before we get to the end, because the end is really the only part that has all that crazy prom stuff. But in the novel, you kind of know it's coming from the start. You know, people are going to die because it's referenced.
So what is your opinion on the prom scene? Because that is like the big scene.
I mean, I think it's spectacular in a lot of ways. I love how it was done visually. We talked earlier about how the split screen that Brian De Palma did was very suiting for the scene, considering like there's a lot of stuff going on. When I was watching narratively, I was like, oh man, the teacher died, you know, because she was fairly sweet. Oh man, Tommy died. You know, he also seemed fairly sweet. I was also wondering like, okay, so how's Sue? Is Sue gonna make it out of this? And apparently she did. But I thought it was amazing. It didn't happen the way I thought it was, because my preconceived notions of the movie, and this is only a week worth of preconceived notions, by the way. Like before 8 days ago, I had no clue anything what this movie was about. I thought Carrie was like a doll. I thought this was going to be like a haunted doll movie, if I'm being honest with you. And so when I saw...
Were you thinking of Annabelle?
I was thinking it's a movie like Annabelle, like an Annabelle, a Chucky, you know, all those haunted doll movies.
Megan.
Megan. I thought it was going to be one of those. So I was surprised to see that Carrie was a person. But all I knew was that there was a scene at the end of the movie where she uses her telekinetic powers to do something. I thought, and I like what ended up happening in the movie and the book a lot better. I thought she was just going to use her telekinesis to blow everybody up.
Boring. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little more boring.
I'm sure this was much better then.
Yeah, I
And also, she
prefer
looks
what we
so
got.
creepy while doing it because like
Covered
she's wearing
in blood.
Well, I also read that in the book she wore a red dress to prom.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
In the movie, they gave her a pale pink dress. I think they did much better with that because that is
agree.
way creepier.
It's creepier. You get to see her more. I actually like I said, the blank stare more than the grin. I feel like the grin is a little over the top too.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Going home when she goes to take a bath, I did not see her mom standing there in the corner
You
for the longest. No, she was hiding there so well, in my opinion.
I feel like they had like a light on her face almost.
Really,
Like, 'cause
me
they
and Bailey
want-
both. We didn't
Really?
notice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because she's standing behind a mannequin.
Yeah.
So she just looks like another mannequin, I guess, in the background.
And she cleans herself, and I don't know what's coming. I don't know her mom's reaction really. All those candles lit down there, and when she pulls out that knife, it's like, oh no, So I thought this movie was so good.
Obviously, we get the kind of icon. I think it's kind of sacrilegious, and it almost does feel like a little bit of dark humor because the way that the mom dies, is knives in the hands and like on her body and everything, and it almost kind of feels like, girl, you be dying like Jesus right now.
Well, that was the point because she
Right.
looks exactly like the crucifixion that Carrie has in the closet.
I love it.
Okay, I will say the one thing I am disappointed in both instances at the ending is that Carrie perishes.
I kind of thought it was just her being like, okay, I'm done with this world. And like she kind of does it herself.
Okay.
I don't know. Kind of like maybe she felt bad about it in the end, even though they were the ones who were being mean to her.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That was my take on it because I just thought maybe she was just like, I'm gonna get got for this. So now I might as well go ahead and end it here.
I'm telling you though, that last little jump scare of her reaching out of there, oh my gosh, I love it.
Okay.
Really got me.
So I have to go ahead and tell you about Stephen King's opinion. There's a
I'm
video
excited
that
to
we
hear.
have. Stephen King video. We'll play that. And he talks about seeing this movie in theaters, which is really fun.
Okay.
Carrie was a terrific piece of work, and their terrific acting by Piper Laurie. She was nominated for an Oscar, but did not win it. And Sissy Spacek was nominated and didn't win it. And both of them were really good. But I first saw the movie, this was when I was very young and very new at the business, and nobody would ever think of giving such a minor creature as the author a screening. So I had not seen Carrie, and I had not read the screenplay. And I went to see it at a preview in Boston. My wife and I went, and all we knew was that there was going to be an 8 o'clock screening of Carrie a week before the wide opening of the picture. What we didn't know was that the movie that it had been paired with at the theater was Red Fox in a picture called Norman, Is That You? It was an urban audience, and it was almost 100% black. There were very few white people in the audience. And my heart just sank because I thought to myself, this is not going to go well. This particular audience is probably not going to relate to this skinny little white girl in a upper middle class suburb with her menstrual problems. But they did. It's one of the most heartening examples in my mind of the way that art levels all walks of life, all cultures, all races. They cared, they identified with her, and they cheered basically when she pulled down the gymnasium and the whole place caught fire. But the genius of Brian De Palma was that he fooled us into taking our armor off just before the movie was over. We unarmored in our minds. We were already thinking about where's my coat? Make sure that my wife gets her hat. Do you have money to pay the babysitter when we get home? So you're totally open and totally vulnerable to what happens. Now, at least I knew there was something. The audience had no clue. So at the end of the movie, when Sue Snell, who was played by Amy Irving, is going to put flowers on Carrie White's grave, a hand comes up through the grave and seizes her, and the audience went to the roof, totally to the roof. And they screamed their head off, and it was just the most amazing reaction. And I thought, we have a monster hit on our hands, and Brian De Palma has done something new. He's actually created a shock ending that shocks an audience that was ready for a horror film. And there were several people who did it after that. The original Friday the 13th had that same kind of ending where you think everything is going to be okay. There's a canoe on a placid lake, and all at once Jason leaps out of the water. And so it became, after a while, part of the horror movie tradition to do that.
Careful. This is the moment when the supposedly dead killer comes back to life for one last scare.
Yeah. You know, I have that on my mind because of Scream for that reason, where like there's always like a final little scream or whatever at the end, like a little scare. And this one, hearing him talk about like how everybody jumped through the roof is so accurate.
That's so funny.
It's hard for me to believe you.
No,
Jeremy.
I swear on my life, I have seen so many of these movies.
Yeah,
I knew
enough.
it was coming.
I did not see that coming for a second. So when it happened, it was like, for me, honestly, the most horrifying part of the movie and one of the scariest parts of any movie that we've seen.
I also feel like the way that it was just so slowly panned out that like I was like, okay, like I did not get scared. I don't know, but I mean, I hadn't seen the 2013 film in I don't know how many years. I probably haven't seen it since 2013 when it came out. So that's the only version of it that I'd seen, and I don't remember a lot of it. If I'm being honest, this was my first occurrence with this one, and I was not as like shocked as you were. I was like, I just knew the tension was rising, and I was like, she's gonna reach out because I've seen that in other movies, typically with like zombies or something.
Yeah,
like,
you just know the
out.
genre better.
Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, that's gonna happen, and then it happened, and I was like, okay.
Well, it knocked the socks out of me.
I'm sorry that happened to you, but I mean,
I'm happy. I enjoyed it.
But it's also really funny to hear that other people weren't expecting that because, like he said, they took their armor off, which it's such a staple in the horror community, though, that it was just something that I was expecting. But you don't always expect that because sometimes you are expecting that and then it doesn't happen. So that is always really fun when they build that tension and then nothing happens because then you're like, oh, they got me because I was ready.
Subverting. Mm-hmm. I'm excited to rank this and rate it.
Yeah, I know, because it's tough because there's so many good movies that we've watched in this season already.
I agree.
So we're gonna go ahead and rank the movie. Currently, our rankings are sitting at Misery, It, The Shining, Christine, and then Space. Yeah. So where would I put this myself? I'm
gonna stop you.
Okay.
Because I want to give it my personal rating first.
Okay, that's fine.
I enjoyed the crap out of this movie.
Good.
I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I have far less criticisms about this movie than any of the movies we've covered so far.
Good.
Therefore, 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10?
10 out of 10. I'm giving it a 10.
Okay.
I think this movie is like downright perfect.
It's so hard because I love Misery and I love It as well. Like those were probably like my top three out of these. Like Carrie's gonna be in my top three for sure. I just can't decide where I would place it. It's so tough. I will say that I probably enjoyed it more than Misery, so it's probably gonna be a 10 for me as well. Woo! Just because overall, it's just, I don't know, the revenge story is sweet.
Yeah, like Stephen King said, everybody erupted into cheers once she started taking her revenge.
And you're like, yes, queen, kill them all.
Exactly. I usually don't have that reaction. Yeah, we talk about this podcast all the time. I'm usually not in for it.
You were in it?
I was in for it, man.
But Carrie doesn't deserve that shit. So you're like, get him.
And she did.
I mean, even though I don't like condone murder, but like slay queen.
I agree. Well, that changes up our rankings. That puts our final Stephen King season ranking. And don't get me wrong, we'll do more Stephen King movies in the future.
This is just Stephen King part one of many.
We'll definitely cover the other It movies. I'd love to watch the other Carries. I know there's 2 other remakes, like a 2002,
there's 2 other remakes, and there's a sequel.
There's a sequel, but it's not Sissy Spacek. Yeah. I think it's just like a girl who also has telekinetic powers in the same town. That's so fun. All right, so our final rankings are from worst to best. 5, Christine. 4, The Shining. 3, It. 2, Misery. And number 1, Carrie. Carrie. Woo! We did it, guys. Thank you for joining us on this season. It's been so much fun. It has been so much fun. And then do we want to go ahead and tell them the next season? Let's tell everybody what we're doing next. We're doing the Mythbusters. Ghostbusters. Oh, I guess.
Who you gonna call?
I'm so excited. Just wait. Just you wait. Yeah. Special interest of Geraldine. Very special interest. Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll see you guys there. Hope you guys enjoyed this season, and we'll be back soon. We'll be back soon because bustin' makes us feel good.
Thank you for listening to Fright or Flight, a Live Oaks Village production. This episode was hosted by Geraldine Johnson and Saul Alberto Arzmendi Ochoa.
Produced by me, Bailey B.
Edited by Geraldine Johnson and music composition by Saul Alberto Arzmendi Ochoa.